Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dr. Lang. Thank you, Dr. Yang. Thank you, Deputy Director Lin and Deputy Director Wang, for having me back here. I've been here just about 14 months ago. I truly enjoyed my first visit and also my second visit now to Taiwan. It's a true pleasure to be here. Over the course of this week, I arrived on Tuesday. I've learned a tremendous amount of things, and a tremendous amount of issues were raised and concerns were addressed. And so part of what I'm going to be talking to you about is not new in that sense. What I'm merely hoping to offer you is a bit of a Swiss perspective, also a bit of a global perspective to the Global Cleantech Cluster Association, and how we might be able to accelerate these developments or these deployments of technologies into the marketplace, and I try to show that with two case studies today. If I'm just attaching my first thoughts to Dr. Gertler's presentation, I think for Switzerland, I can give you a quick update on what's happening there. The most important, the most pressing issue is energy efficiency. Switzerland being a very wealthy and rich country, also a tremendous wasteful country. And someone said the other day that the average Swiss building, not the newer ones, but maybe a bit of the older ones, but they're less smart than a normal coffee maker, which is quite shocking to me, actually. Switzerland's political level now decided just in the recent years that it's final now. We will be sourcing out or phasing out our nuclear power plants, the 7 that we have in operations. And we still support solar developments, solar power developments, and other renewable resources. So we'll see a spike in those areas. People are, however, a bit concerned in terms of energy security. That's an issue as well. And again, I think that comes straight back to energy efficient issues. So let's start for what I'm here to talk to you about. A quick look at IPCC and the Earth Overshot Day, 2 concepts that I then would like to have 3 other examples that I can look at this differently as well. A quick look at policy making, instrument that Swiss Cleantech in Switzerland focuses mainly. So my 13 colleagues in Switzerland, that's their main job, is to influence the political level on a daily basis. Then an update on the Global Cleantech Cluster Association, the GCCA, and the Global Technology Deployment Initiative and financial innovations, a key piece that ties in with the Global Cleantech Cluster Association that I would like to spend a little bit of time on. And then 2 case studies to put a little bit of meat onto the bone. IPCC has been mentioned this morning already, and also on Tuesday. I don't want to spend too much time on it. What was interesting to me just recent weeks in Switzerland when the report came out, there was a show on TV where people started to discuss, and there in the report there's a section where it says for the last 12 to 15 years that there's almost a bit of a stagnation in the temperature warning. So even though the report is very clear that now to virtually 95% climate change is something that is man-made, this little aspect of the report has started the political discussion altogether, and people coming out and saying like, oh my God, the Swiss CO2 laws, which accounts for a reduction of 20% by 2020 to the levels of 1990, are way too stringent, way too severe. So very fast we're getting into a political realm again of the discussion and actually forget about the actual issue. Another way of looking at this is from a Swiss scientist, Matthias Wackernagel, who has come up with the Global Footprint Network. So actually looking at how many resources or how much resources is accounted for each country and how much are we using. Today is Earth Overshot Day, August 20th. So basically that marks the time when we started to borrow from future resources. So right now, we're living on behalf or on the account of future generations. Okay, so we're borrowing from the future. I unfortunately don't have data for Taiwan. You see Switzerland here, so 4.2 times the resources that we actually would have. China here, 2.5. So essentially, this discussion brings another political item onto the agenda, and that's a resource strategy. And that's what Swiss Cleantech pushes again hard in Switzerland. So how can we become more efficient what we have, what actually is allocated to our country in terms of population, and work with those resources without borrowing from future generations. Mr. Wackernagel, here if I look at the world, says at this point we would need 1.5 times our planet to keep going at the rate we're going, and this will increase by 2050 to about 2 or even more than 2 planets if we wanted to go that way. A very important issue in terms of the global footprint network is as well as ties in with biodiversity. Biodiversity and biomimicry, if I so want to go that direction. So essentially, each species that, or each part of biodiversity that we lose a tremendous knowledge that we can learn from to develop solutions that we need to tackle our most urgent issues. I'll come to that point later on in my case study. Again, it's a technology that actually is based on biomimicry, or looking in nature how a phenomena works and applied into technology. I want to get away, though, from these two more scientific approaches and just simply throw in 3 examples how I could say, well, the Earth is out of balance. Okay, so example number 1, this is pork consumption. I'm a vegetarian, but nevertheless, I use a meat example. So this is pork consumption and how it's increased over the years from 1975, that's when I was born, to 2013. You see that the increase is 5-fold in China compared to the United States. Now, pork consumption, meat production, uses a tremendous amount of water and a tremendous amount of energy that is required to meet this demand here. Second example, this is a bluefin tuna. Yes, a fish. This fish was sold for $1.6 million this year in January. $1.6 million for a fish. Unbelievable. I mean, it's very clear that this fish will be extinct very shortly, because until the last one is caught and sold, there's no doubt. Unbelievable. $1.6 million for a fish. A strip mine, open pit mine, see a lot of those in Canada. So if we're willing to take away whole mountains to get onto the few resources that we need, there's clearly something out of balance. So what I'm trying to show you is away from scientific discussion, away from political discussion, with a few examples, we see that something's not quite right. I still believe we only have one of those. And the Swiss Cleantech approach is we believe in free marketplace. So the market has to play, but we need regulations. We need a framework and we need policies within that that market can actually play. It's very, very important. So how do we get to these policies? I'll give you a quick overview on the approach of how Switzerland tackles, or Swiss Cleantech tackles this issue. So essentially, we're working with focus group. If I had drawn this in a diagram here, I have the green economy, global trends and standards, a little bit on the like a radar. That's where we have our political analysts work and keep their eyes open on a daily basis of what's going on. And then we tie in. I should press it here, with 10 focus groups. So essentially we have come up with 10 different categories where we include entrepreneurs, innovators, stakeholders, opinion leaders, bottom up. So we collect their knowledge, we gather their knowledge in regular meetings and feed that back to the political systems in a way that we condense the knowledge, try to build majorities and offer system solutions, but also offers policy suggestions. So what's happening here and how this is transported, Swiss Cleantech produces these reports that then are circulated back into the political system. Now the Swiss system, we not only have one president, or 2, or 3, or 4, or 5, where is he? Or 6, 7. We have 7 main ministers. There's no president. So it's a basic democratic system with, I would say sometimes on a critical side, it's a bit of a slow system, but because things take time, because it's such a how shall I say? It's a long democratic process that has to go through lots of hoops. We create a very stable political system that helps to find investment security for companies and also for green technologies in Switzerland. A little bit about Swiss Cleantech. Right now, we account for about 350 members. Those are very important to us in terms of the module that we use. We have a membership module that the company pays 0.2% of their pension plan sum paid to their employees as a membership fee, plus a basic fee. So it really depends on how large is the company that then determines the membership fee per year. These individual members are very important, but what's also very important are those here, and those are associations. So Swiss Cleantech is now linked with over 20 associations. I think the important fact to stress here is that the broad level that we achieve now through that. So we have, on the one end of the spectrum, we have the Swiss Engineering and Architectural Society, then we have Swiss finance industry members, onto construction industry members and so on. So this is really a strong arm that helps us position ourselves in the political landscape. Now, Switzerland is a very small country, 42,000 square kilometers, about 8 million people. Our reach is very limited that way. But I think the need is, and I mentioned that last night quickly too in one of my comments, the need is not to, if I go onto a technology level, not to reinvent the wheel. There's a tremendous amount of good technology innovated and produced out there. The question is, how do we get those? How do we link, how we get to the proven best-in-class technologies? And that sparked Swiss Cleantech to co-found the Global Cleantech Cluster Association. And I talked briefly about this last year, and I want to just give you a quick update how it has had now grown even larger. So a quick look at the vision. So it's making local clusters global. So same as Swiss Cleantech now within Switzerland, how can we draw the wheel a little larger? How could we get to the information? How we could get to sourcing these proven available technologies? The idea simply is, if I have a key person in that cluster, and the cluster means it's an area that has a certain amount of clean and green tech technology companies. And it could be a person, it could also be an institution that has access to these companies. So if I bring two of these key people together, let's say one from Switzerland, one from Taiwan, both have access to 200 to 300 companies, together we gain access to 600 companies. So what happened with Swiss Cleantech, with Global Cleantech Cluster Association, you'll see afterwards, we have tied now 50 of those institutions, of those clusters together, and gain access to over 10,000 companies with their products. Okay, so that's really a way of, we try to enable sustainable regional economic development and give access to markets and technologies and capital, what we see after that as well. And the last point here, competition, but also collaborating with one another. I will address all of these points individually now. Quick recap how it started. 2010. Founder member Swiss Cleantech and the Finnish Cleantech cluster and the Watershed Capital Group. So one in Switzerland, one in Finland, one in the United States. Grown in 3 years to over 50 clusters and access to over 10,000 companies. You see the concentration here. It's a lot of it is in North America and a lot of it is in Europe, with a few then spared out. Now, if I look at the focus, it's very clear to see that the focus is also in this region here. So we really want to tap into Asia Pacific in terms of gathering more clean tech clusters and including those clusters into this global network. 50 clusters right now. Not sure if we want to put a cap on how many clusters we want to grow to, but if I'd say, or if I look at maybe 100 are hard to manage. So we would have to come up with a system or solution that we can actually have them more manageable. I would think 30 to 40 would be a good number. So we have created basically these gateways where we look at the Americas, Europe, and Asia Pacific. Quickly, word to the achievements. 45 to 50 cluster members, up 40%. GCCA later stage award, I think very, very interesting, especially after being at your classic award ceremony on Tuesday, where you nominate your best-in-class companies in Taiwan. I think those have to be brought onto a global stage. So the Global Cleantech Cluster Later Stage Award enables local clusters to nominate their best-in-class companies, and those companies then entering the competition. The Later Stage Award, second edition, had 200 nominees and 10 best-in-class winners, and got a tremendous amount of funding. So they had about $460 million in funding that these companies received that were picked as the winners. I don't know if you can see it down here, very important as well, is the GCCA survey. So essentially it's a global survey now among these 50 clusters, purely focusing on clean technologies. Quick word to the events. The Later Stage Award this year is in Finland, in Lahti, in November 20. And if for any of you it's possible to travel there, feel free to do so. It's definitely going to be a nice event, or a good event, where usually we attract a lot of cluster managers come together, and the networking opportunities are tremendous. The Later Stage Award next year will be held in Switzerland, and I think important to point out, in 2 years' time, 2015, the notion is that we would like to have the Later Stage Award in Asia. The city hasn't been defined yet, but we would really like to bring this award to Asia. I find that is an interesting point here too, so collaboration or competition. So clusters, and we had this discussion on Wednesday night as well. So aren't these clusters, isn't everyone competing for jobs, for foreign investment and foreign trade? Yes, that's certainly true, but I think there's enough areas to show that you can actually collaborate. And I think the approach there is to look at what is unique about my cluster. If I look at Switzerland, for example, if I look at the Technical Federal Institute, the ETH, a very strong institution in the fields of mathematics, chemistry, and physics, has brought out over 21 Nobel Prize winners over the time. Something very unique to Switzerland. And in that sense, I think there's lots of uniqueness to your cluster here in Taiwan. So to really look at what makes Taiwanese cleantech cluster unique, and bring that to the table, and start to look at with whom we would like to collaborate, with whom would we like to share information, and how could we benefit from doing that. And I know that exists already from the presentation last night from Professor Nakahara, the collaboration between Japan and Taiwan, for example. Here's a collaboration matrix that came out of the survey 2012. This is not meant that you can read it from your seat, but you have it in your documentation as well. And it just gives you an overview of what actually is happening already, and a bit of the priorities of the clusters, who they would want to start or would like to start collaborating with. Of course, we've started collaborating already with the GDPO since last year. That's probably the reason why I'm back here as well. And we will continue to do this a bit on right now, a bit more of an informal level, though. So quickly, why is GCCA a success story at this point? It comes down to the regional cluster. So the initiative is with the local cluster. So it comes from the local cluster. With whom would we like to work with? And GCCA is simply an enabler. Simply an enabler tool. It's a bottom-up approach. It's a trust-based approach, self-organizing, and open and for access and dialogue. So communication is very, very important, and GCCA again is enabler, is a tool that makes this communication possible between those 50 clusters right now. Interesting as well out of the survey, so what are the main services that these clusters offer? And this is really now gathered information among the 50 clusters and how they're doing it. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but can simply look at how others are doing it, what is best practice we can share, we can find out what fits best for our situation. So regional B2B contacts, access to markets, cleantech information, access to capital, technology, commercialization. Little R&D or innovation services or incubation services. Those have been lower in the response. Essentially, conclusion, regional work is backbone. Access to markets and commercialization is becoming more important. And the need is to internationally value chain. So how can we source best-in-class technologies and put them along the value chain and offer complete solutions? And I think that's really an approach that we should look at more in depth in the future. Challenges, of course, number one, funding. So there's different modules out there. As I shared too, being former trade commissioner for Switzerland Trade and Investment, we had to bill by the hour. I personally didn't think that was the best approach. If I looked at the Canadian Trade Commissioner Service, they have a different approach. It could be a membership-based approach. I think we really have to put our heads together and find and develop solutions that fit best. this is exciting for the GCCA because I'll have to look, August 2013, there was an agreement signed with the Global Technology Deployment Initiative, the GDTI. The GDTI it consists out of the P80 group and the CDM, so the Club de Madrid. The P80 group, inspired by His Honorary Excellence Prince Charles, brings the 80th biggest pension funds together. And the CDM is the group of former states presidents, is the Club de Madrid. So if I look at deployment of technologies, there's two big hurdles usually. One is financing, the other one is political will. And with both of these groups, we could overcome both of them. What is needed, though, for the GDTI is technology, proven applied technology sourced globally. Now, the challenge is, this would symbolize a whole chunk of money. And that's that would be a sovereign fund or a pension fund. And usually those funds, there's a serious problem because traditional investment tools have generated very little returns. Plus a notion of we should really do something, or we should really do something with this money towards the planet, right? So these pension funds are tremendous sums of money. If I look at the Korean pension fund here, for example, $350 billion US. Now, 2% is actually meant to be invested in clean technologies. Still $7 billion. It's a big project. What can we do? I took an example, LED streetlights, upgrades for cities. And if I'd say, well, $5 million, okay, that's not too bad. But now what I need to find is about 100 of those. And then we could put this together, and it's still a small amount for a pension fund, but now suddenly we're scaling up, and we're getting to a range of, oh, this could be investable for a financial fund like that. So what's wanted is best-in-class technology that we could bring forward, that we could bring to the attention of the GDTI, of the P80 group, and the Club de Madrid, so that we could really accelerate the deployment, so that we could bring capital to where it's needed and political will to where we get the technology into. And GCCA, again, is in the middle of that now with this agreement signed in August this year. We're really a player in this game and can bring to the table technologies that we source around our 50 Cleantech clusters. So again, that's why it's super important that we can motivate clean technology regions and regions like Taiwan that has made a priority to be on that platform, to include them into the GCCA, to get access and to help you get access to these global stages. 2 case studies now to put a little bit of meat onto the bone here. The first one is SAM, and the second one is a case study from Canada. So as Dr. Yang mentioned before, I'm a Swiss Canadian. I spent half of my time in Switzerland, half of my time in Canada. So here's 2 case studies, one from Switzerland, one from Canada. I showed this last year, and I was mentioning I'm talking about electric bikes. I have one of those, and by now I think I cycled in the year that I haven't seen you now. I cycle about 8,000 or 9,000 kilometers on it. It still works. It's brilliant. It's made right here in Taiwan. Brilliant product. But I stand corrected. The Swiss do make cars. And here's a prototype model of SAM. SAM is an electric car, and the SAM group has started to develop. Just show the next slide here. Here's the development. SAM Group is now in business for about 15 years and started to develop prototypes for electric cars. Started with the first prototype around 2001 and is now at the stage of this 2013 to 2015 models. In your documentation, you won't have the imagery because I was told they're still too confidential to give out, but you have a nice summary of what they're actually looking for and contact information. And please feel free to contact me as well if you have any questions on this case study, or if you would like to contact Mr. Abbey, the CEO, directly. So essentially, the SAM Group now is at the stage where they'd like to go into mass production. And this summarized what I just said. But they're looking for a strategic business partner now to look after the business development, components, supply, and assembly. And I think it's a beautiful example of how our collaboration now that we started over a year ago started to bear fruits. by simply putting two and two together, putting supply and demand together. And this could go into a direction that the SAM Group would give out a license for Asia as well to a potential business partner here in Taiwan as well. And we started already drawing some connections this week, so I'm very happy about that. Quick word about SAM Group and their core expertise. So they spent a lot of time looking at battery technology. This might be a bit more technical here. You have that as well in your in your documentation, and electric drivetrain. So that's their core focus. Here's a nice shot of how SAM would look, or one of the applications of SAM. I think it's interesting. It's a modular concept that essentially has a basic chassis and drive that's then used to create the most basic version of SAM in a price range. It's quoted here in euros of 13,000. That would be about $15,000 US or so. And this is then modified to a bit more of a leisure version with open roof and so on, or then to a cargo version that would help small businesses. So the clear focus, the strategic focus for SAM Group is utility, and start already with small volume of production for business customers. So here's how this could look. And that could be a future Swiss Post car, fully electric, or then a future IKEA car, or even a food delivery truck, for example. So, second case study, or last case study here. You see in the upper right, Swiss Army knives with all the tools. Here, with this one, I really have to make use of all the tools that I can possibly have. And this is what all comes together. I will talk about all of these elements quickly afterwards. It's a Canadian example, how to make ice. And I'm very hopeful that we're actually changing the way ice is made in Canada for hockey. And as you know, hockey is huge in Canada, also in the United States, of course. So brings me back to the start of my presentation, biomimicry. So this technology is really based in a natural phenomenon that was discovered by an Austrian called Schaumberger in 1920. So he realized that what happens inside a tornado, or inside when you swirl air or water. Okay, and a Swedish company has picked it up and has developed this to the point where it's now commercially viable and sellable. So this is what's happening inside the vortex generator. So essentially, there's no moving part. You spin water through it. The water swirls in a tornado-formed motion, and this is what's happening. You draw the air bubbles to the center. Okay. Okay, so far so good. There's lots of applications of this technology I'm happy to talk to you more about as well, but probably my time will be run out in no time. But I'm just talking to you about what it happens, or what it does actually in ice rinks. So hot water is ice maker's best friend. So if you freeze water, you'd like to get rid of as much as air in the water as possible to get a very compact sheet of ice. Okay. So usually, traditionally, this is done. You take the water from the hose. It comes out at 15 degrees Celsius or so, and you heat it up to 72 to 75, and then you freeze it down to -9. So you see some inefficiencies there to achieve exactly what real ice does with no additional energy. So essentially, you run the water through this pipe, you separate the air from the water, and you achieve the same results with zero energy put in. Also, you're not shaving off excess heat from 71 degrees Celsius down to -9. No, you're going from 15 now to -6 because your ice is thinner. And therefore, you need to draw less on your compressor to achieve the same thing. NHL Winter Classics using this already. It's a bit hush-hush, but they're doing this already. So here's a bit of a saving, or what's the result of this. So essentially, what I was shocked to learn is how much water is actually poured out on an ice rink every day. You have a Zamboni or ice resurfacer, takes about 250 gallons or so, times 12 to 15 times a day. So it's about 10,000 liters a day, okay, that you heat up and then freeze down. So this, on the heating side, would save you about 600 GJ to 1,000 GJ, depending. On the cooling side, on the shaving off the energy, is about 500 kilowatt hours or more. CO2, about 30 to 50 tons per ice rink. So a savings, 14,000 to 22,000, depending on the price of energy. Energy prices in Canada are very low, especially for natural gas, but still. Return on investment, less than 2 years. If you have a twin pad rink, less than 1 year. Here's a statement. from one that has tried and approved it in the state of Vermont. So he's saving about $1,200 to $1,500 a month. Guess what? It doesn't work to deploy into the marketplace. I've tried very long, very hard. It didn't work. People were saying, no, we know how to make ice. You know what? We don't want to change. It doesn't work. Now, here's the turnkey in this example, and that's the policy level. Now, there is the BC Utilities Commission that has gives out the mandate now to the regulated utilities, and FortisBC is one of these regulated utilities. FortisBC is the gas provider in British Columbia with 1.1 million customers. Now, BC Utilities Commission mandates FortisBC to be more efficient. So they have to come up with programs that support products to save gas. Okay, and without this wouldn't tick. So essentially now, FortisBC finances 10 pilot installations, and after the pilots are done, there's a rebate and subsidy program that enables every rink in British Columbia to tap into these rebates and subsidies. If it's 30% to 40% or 50%, it's yet to be determined. The pilot runs in January, but that will be determined once they see how much the actual savings are. Again, the potential savings we can easily calculate. It's physics. The actual savings is like you own a very efficient car. It still depends how you drive it. If you leave the door open in an ice rink, of course, then you have another component that plays in. So very important that this mechanism, and again, it sounds a bit simple, but pilot project financing and rebate and incentive financing are key to deployment. To get what I've learned, again, this technology used by the NHL Winter Classics, used 250 times in Europe. If it doesn't exist in Canada, it doesn't work. So you need to get it there. You need to show it that it actually works. In terms of this technology, but I think it applies to a lot of other technologies as well. The way to do it is actually to rent technology or to lease technology. And Mr. Hickson on Tuesday was speaking about that, about a company called Interface, who actually leases tiles, floor tiles, to their customers and takes them back. They want to get back the resource again to create new tiles. So this is the business model as well, to go rent technology, lease technology. Because if I were to rent this technology out to the ice rink, and the ice rink saves $1,200, I can easily rent this for $800 and give them $400 back from day one, and we can still make this work. I did some crazy calculation. I thought if I wanted to deploy this ice rink technology all over Canada, I need a pension fund. I need about $80 million. It's a good size. Of course, this would have a big impact on the adoption cycle of technologies like that. The adoption here wouldn't even be existent without this financial mechanism. Second to last, what's very important in this process, and that's, I can't stress that enough, is standards. If I looked at Switzerland again, just coming back to Switzerland for one moment, Switzerland and China have signed a free trade agreement, and I was at a conference in Switzerland back in September, and what was evident was one of the key pieces is they looked at how many ISO standard regulations were accepted in China and in effect, and how many are in Switzerland. And that's the starting ground, the common ground where we can start to work. And same for this tool here. CSA could not approve this technology because there was simply no process, because it was too new. But the trick was essentially to go back to this technology from Sweden has been certified in ISO 17025 accredited labs in Sweden. The Vancouver Institute Intertech has the same accreditation. Hence, the results have to be valid. So, if I encourage you on one thing in terms of standardization, work with standards, get the standards to really enable that international jump, so it actually can be deployed in the marketplace. Because the mechanism can be so complicated that it takes so much time and effort and money that it will be a real obstacle. The picture you see underneath here. Ruptured at almost 100 bar or 750 psi. Regular pressure from water would be 5, 6 bar max, maybe 7. Okay. Last but not least, I think within this whole global sourcing of technology and applying locally, what's very important is to be successful, to speak the local language. So marketing is a local task. So we have to get down to the bottom and involve local channels, local PR instruments to get the people on board. And last but not least, here I have this chart of 7 steps of behavioral change. So that's what it takes to go through the hoops to have the operational guy at the end liking this technology and using it. Because if it's in there and it's been top-down decision from management, but now the ICE or surfacer driver, there's something going wrong and he has to do 1 round extra, he's not going to like it. And he will climb up the chair, and at some point the technology will be taken out, will be sent back and said, hey, it doesn't work. So you need all levels, you need to include all levels, and you need to speak the local language. Conclusion, key messages from a bit of the first part, and then some learnings from the 2 case studies. Clearly, I think the world is out of balance. We can go into political discussion or not, but I think a few examples show that there's definitely something off. Policies are very, very important. That's the main work of my colleagues in Swiss Cleantech in Switzerland, about 13 of them in the office. Swiss Cleantech's approach, majority building due to especially due to the Swiss democratic system, building majorities through focus groups and condensing that knowledge and bringing it in. Clean technology sourced globally, applied locally through networks like Global Cleantech Cluster Association. That financing mechanism, tapping into big sovereign and wealth funds, big pension funds, and try to bring a project pipeline, a technology pipeline to these funds and to these political influence opinion leaders to get technology deployed. Join global networks. I mean, that would be my message here. Second part, from the case studies, smart policies can help to develop and to deploy products into the marketplace when even short return on investments from less than 2 years or even 1 year does not do the job anymore. Rebates, subsidies, pilot financing is key to get demonstration products on the ground, focusing on standards, and yeah, last but not least, available proven technology sourced globally and applied locally with a local language to get bottom-up support from the local people. Time is right. It's a Swiss cuckoo clock with some globes underneath. Happy to take any questions, and I'm looking forward to the panel discussion afterwards. Thank you so much. By the way, I showed this last year already. So this is a completely net zero building up at 4,000, or don't quote me on how high up it is, but it's around 4,000 meters. It's the Bernina hut, and there's a similar project now in Singapore creating a autark building that's purely self-sufficient. It actually generates energy.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Gabriel. Actually, it's very interesting because I came from a research institute. Normally, we have a lot of good technology, but from the time frame, usually it will take tens of years to put one good technology into the market to a certain extent. That would be quite a long way. If we have, actually, as you mentioned, if we have funds, different kind of pension fund, other kind of funds can support, probably the only thing we need is some, I would say it's supposed to be certain kind of entrepreneurship as the enabler to bridging the gap, because normally people will just throw their money, invest on any different kind of things. That's very important. So the case of GCCA, I think it's very important for us, and especially in Taiwan, probably we need that kind of mechanism and even join that kind of association. Probably just because of the time limitation, I'll extend the Q&A to the panel section. Let's thanks Mr. Gabriel again. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Yang.